I'm Dylan. I'm a few-time co-founder, lifelong software engineer. I've been using Cursor, Windsurf, a lot of the actual IDE tools for a while, but I hadn't used any of these command line tools until the last couple of weeks. Claude Code, and in theory, it's just an interface to, if you go to claude.com or whatever, you get a chat window, and basically it does that. Like, you just type Claude in. I have this connected to my Claude account. I'm using a $20 a month account. When you run it the first time, it has you log in, it ties to the same thing. You got to give it permission to each folder. That's one annoyance, is every time I try to run something, I have to hit yes, no. You could do within a session, you could say granted all. And then let me show it. There is this dangerously skip permissions, but it literally says dangerously because you probably shouldn't do that. And then it is an agent. So I can tell it, like, me a web app for my finances, allow for categories, income versus expenses, and tracking by the month. And just like if you're using Cursor agent mode or Windsurf or something, it'll go off and write that code for you, build the whole app, and then I don't think it'll try to run it, but it'll let you know how to run it. So we'll let that go. We'll see how long it takes. I could probably show a couple other things while it does that. Let me do that. So just like the desktop app, it has support for MCP servers. I think I could just do, like, yeah, you can see I've got a few here already. I've got one for Notion, for GitHub that I've been using. And you can add new ones. The one thing that kind of sucks is Claude Desktop has a big file where you can add your MCP servers that does not work with Claude Code. So I have to through and re-add them each. I can show you how to add one. I have this one for file. I don't know if this is actually needed. I think it may work with the file system by default, but I can add file system and then scope it to my user. If you don't do that, I think it'll just add it for everyone. I haven't actually tested not doing that though. Then you just add JSON, so it still uses JSON just like the Claude Desktop. Yeah, don't type it on there. Yeah, I'll just let's add JSON. Should add. Let me just remove user. Yeah, I can list them. You see it's added. Should have hit yes for all. Yeah, now you see there's 3. I'm gonna delete that one because I don't think it's needed. Let me show you. Okay, let's make sure this is added. I don't know where I probably shouldn't have added that right there, but whatever. I'll clean that up later. I'll just show you what the app it generated looked like. Okay. I added it right in my home directory. That was probably not a great idea. Now I can add new, like, $20 expense, transportation. Okay, that works. Then, like, first to generate code, I can ask it to add more and more stuff there. We'll do something else with that repository in a second, but here to MCPs, I can then, like, dive back into Claude. Yes, proceed. And then I can tell it, generate me a poem, but because I have this Notion MCP, I can tell it, generate me a poem about Seattle and deploy it to a new Notion page. Hey, welcome, Daniela. And I'll hit yes for all here. Yep, posting the page. That's yeah. Maybe while I let it do that. Okay, that's done. Make sure that works. Nice. Yeah. Works with MCP just like Claude Desktop does. You can add and remove them. And also, because it's command line, it adds a lot of cool, like, I guess, a lot of power. Like, if you're familiar with Bash or any command line, you can chain a lot of commands. You can run nested commands and stuff, and all of that works with Claude. So, for instance, I can tell it, like, give me the command for installing Ruby. See what it does. Yeah. Mac, and we'll say without any markup, even code tags. All right, so it just gives me that. But because it's command line, I can, if you got backticks, it'll take, instead of printing out the response, any string you put within backticks gets ran as a command. So I can do, like, just put that in backticks, and because it's in the command line, it'll run the command automatically. So you could do that in theory with any given command. I don't know. I don't think it should actually install there. There's also piping. I wanted to do a really cool example that Claude themselves give, where you can, like, I get a dev, if you've ever worked with log files, usually these big log files, like here in Heroku, I get a ton, there's errors and all of this. You can pipe them to Claude and tell it, like, an error. I don't have Slack working, but they do a really cool example where they have it continuously running with Slack. So, like, Claude picks it up, it can send a Slack what the error is and a potential solution. That might not work, but in theory that works. But you can do piping just like you can with any command line. So I can say, like, this is a test, or this is an error, please help. You can see it just prints out. I can Claude.p translate this to French. No, there you go. I don't know why it did this, but it still knows it. It's weird. But yeah, you pipe things. And let's get back to here. Okay, done. And And then one of the main things that people are using, you see like Claude actually added rate limits because people are like kind of credits. The reason for that is like, this is just to show the primitives. These are the things that it can do. But one of the really powerful things about Claude Code is it has agents, sub-agents, they call it. So you can define yourself text files and like it off doing whatever it wants. Actually, let me do this in a different directory real quick. Yeah, you can do /agents and it pops up. Have agents, they'll be listed here, and you can go to create a new one. You can actually create it, like you can create them in the folder. So if you have like a code base and you want a bunch of different agents that operate within that code base, you can create it there, push it to Git, anyone can pull, or you can do them globally, and then anywhere you want to mess with Claude, you can do that. So I'll create a global one. Let's say, so you can either type in the text yourself. It's really simple. It's just like a name, tools, and then a paragraph describing what it does, or you can just have Claude generate it, which is what we'll do. And what I'll say is using, technical documentation for the current repository / code base, generate any data structures. Let's say an overview of any data structures, algorithms, and important files. Push this technical documentation to Notion. All right. And then I can pick a color, pink. Then you just have to tell it, let's go back. Okay, code base docs generator. Now, I shouldn't have to do anything else. It should just know and go to work in the background. Yeah, here we go. You can create a bunch of these. You can get them pretty complicated, tell them to like a lot of MCPs. So there's even ones for browsers and stuff like that. And you can tell it like browser to test your own discretion because it can get expensive. I think with Claude, they'll even just cut you off. So Michael, did you have a question or? No, okay. I just cut you off. So I'm like, they have something similar where they've just been passing on the cost, which also made people really mad. So pick your poison, cut off or pay thousands more than you expected. And we'll let that go. If there's any questions, feel free to ask them now, and I'm happy to answer if I can. I think it's pretty easy. I don't know. I've lived in the command line, so it's hard for me to answer that objectively. But I think even once I installed it, if I go into Cursor, it has like a little button for Claude Code. So I think a lot of IDEs, it even has a mode. It lets you set an IDE. So then if when you go to type in Claude, it opens up an IDE instead of opening up on the command line. So I think they probably thought that through, and it's probably pretty easy. Yeah, so it's not exactly like Cursor or VS Code. It's not an IDE, so that's why it couples with an IDE like Cursor. So if you want to edit, like if I want to edit code, I would probably use Cursor or something. If you do it fully in the command line, you can use something like Vim to do it. But if you're not comfortable with command line, I wouldn't recommend that. So you edit code traditionally, it's more of an agent than a code editor. All right, any other questions or? Asked if I missed it, but do you configure the MCP in command line as well? Yeah, you do. And I didn't look too much into it, but unlike Claude Desktop, you can actually edit a text file in this. It really is MCP. This sub command is where it's all done. So I can list them here. See if I can go back to, so you can see I have a few MCP as JSON. Yeah, see, add them like this. So you still have to know like the JSON format. In general, though, that's the way it's always been, even for like desktop Claude, for the GUI Claude, for the graphical, like they all had to have a big JSON file you have to edit. So it's kind of, I don't think there's any getting around that yet. The problem here is it didn't tell me what the URL is. Let's see, I think this is it. Yeah, here you go. So this actually was a lot better. I tested this earlier and it was a lot worse than this. So this built like a huge document for something that's like files. It built this huge document for the finance tracker. Let's give it a look. Asked, trying to get a good understanding of what use cases to use for Claude Code versus Cursor versus Lovable. I think that's contextual, and maybe some of it can even be like I guess I think for Claude Code, like a command line, I don't think none of the other things will help you on the command line. So if you're living there, if you're a dev, if you're doing things like reading errors or even mans or stuff like that, then Claude Code is going to be where it's at. Also good, like as far as agents, if you want to like have agent writing code, I think Claude Code is probably the way to go. I know it's cheaper at this time because they're like the foundation model, so no one has to, there's no one upcharging. Cursor is good for editing code. You have an agent mode. I don't know that it's that great, but I think even with Cursor, I think there's not even a great argument for Cursor over like code anymore because a lot of the like pilot and stuff have really caught up. I still use Cursor, so I'm not saying not to, but I think their business model seems a little more shaky. Lovable, though, I think the answer to Lovable is that it's very like tech friendly. If you just want to you can like website, type in some stuff and generate like a nice looking front end and start iterating. I think Lovable has a moat for that, and they have a good name on top of that people are going to remember Lovable. So Said seems better than Notion AI. Yeah, I don't actually use I tend to not like to use a website for a long time. Even Heroku is doing this now, and then you start hitting it and they're like AI at you. So I've never really used the Notion AI at all, but I can imagine that it's probably a lot better because it's a full agent where Notion AI, I don't know, again, because they're a foundation model, they can, and subsidized cost, they sell at cost where something like Notion can't. And so they're probably cutting corners to do as little actual AI under the hood as they possibly can to get the result. Okay, Tejas said, Claude Code will have access to the entire solution, right? Meaning if I have to do something or find something across the whole repo, this would be more useful as compared to Cursor that doesn't really get into looking at the entire solution. Example, write technical documentation for the entire code base in the project, including flows. Maybe. I think Cursor's only edge at this time is the fact that their core business is that context. So that may not be true. I think with Claude Code, it's probably, I don't know. I don't know the real answer because they may have done a lot of work. I know they're like to be a Cursor killer or Cursor competitor, so they may have done a lot of work to be able to add all the code into context. But right now, like, is really good at context, and even then, it's still not good. So I imagine Claude Code. I haven't used Claude Code like a big project. Like I use Cursor every day on several client projects that are lines of code or something. I haven't tried Claude Code with something that big yet, so I can't give a for sure answer. But I imagine it's probably competitive still between the two. Or Cursor might win out, at least for now. All right, we got probably minutes left if there's any questions coming. Or said last week Claude failed a few times. Do you know? I don't. So even if you go, like, let you know when they failed, to let you know when it comes back up, they do not tell you why. We dealt with that also on a project we're working on, and I thought it was my key. They just stopped working. I have no idea why, and they haven't really given a good retro, at least yet. Yeah, show that. Yeah. They'll say when it goes down, they'll just say like have incidents. I guess it's I don't want to tell you where they messed up or release any security issues or anything like that, but not a lot of insight. All right. I'll leave more minutes for questions. Let's see. Okay. Curious if anyone has used Claude Code to build a Claude artifact. Trying to see if it's a good solution to build more productionalized internal apps versus like a custom GPT. So we have not used Claude Code for that. We have used Claude to do quite a few artifacts. They're really good. It makes it look really nice. It is a pain. Like, if you want to turn it into a actual app with a backend and stuff like that, it can be kind of a pain, especially if like we've done probably 3 now. We started with 1, turned that into an app, did a second one, integrated that, did a third one, and we just finished integrating that. And it can be painful just because it's not hooked into your code base. It's not using your abstractions. It's sometimes like using React or something, it may not even generate React. And when you ask it to, it may do a really bad job of translating what it has to React. It's hit or miss, but I think it's definitely doable. like isn't one where it's taken us like days to integrate, it's like a few hours of integrating that artifact. Nice. I can imagine even today, like when I installed Claude Code, Claude Desktop had no integrations to it. Today I updated the Claude Desktop, and now it still doesn't integrate nicely, but now it actually has a like tab for Claude Code where it shows you how to log in and stuff. So I imagine it definitely works with Claude, and the interfaces aren't quite connected, but on the back end, they're basically just front ends to the same back end. Okay, as I'm building an artifact in Claude, as I made it more complex or asked it to change the UI, it started to fail. I don't have a technical background, so it's hard for me to go in and make sense of what happened. Would the right workflow now be to take that code into Claude Code and have it help me fix the errors, or what do you recommend? Yeah, I would definitely recommend getting that code into like a GitHub repo or something, and then you can get it on your desktop. You can use Claude Code. I don't know if you don't have a technical background, I would recommend opening it in an IDE, and then you can start to actually see the code, and you can ask AI. I don't know, it depends on how deep you want to get. Eventually, you do reach a point where it's not easy to iterate in big sweeping changes. So you can ask, like, it's going to require some prompting. Like, let me know where's the important files. I want to work on this. Like, which files are this located at? And then when you get into that, then you can start iterating on the per file basis. But eventually, when you get into like the files, it starts to, what like Tess brought up earlier, you start to lose the context. Even in like the best IDEs, they're going to lose that much context. It really is hard to make sweeping, like say, go into this code base and button is one thing, but add this whole new feature. It may get a feature to work, it's going to destroy other features. So you're going to have to actually start to get a mind for the code base, even if you don't have to learn how to write code.